So Intel is back in the spotlight after quite an eventful week or week and a half. We have Trump releasing this post in Truth Social saying that the CEO was highly conflicted and he should resign. No, not should, must, which is even crazier. And then there are quite a few events that I wanted to discuss in this video, because I do believe that Intel may have a chance to turn around the sentiment depending on what things happen over the next few weeks. Particularly, I advanced in this introduction a stake from the US government, and this is important, it's not just a stake, but also new talks with Taiwan Semiconductor, maybe AMD, maybe NVIDIA, to have an additional stake in Intel, like it was initially discussed back in, Q1. I think it was in February this year. I think that will be enough for most investors to realize, hang on a second, this stock, which if you look at it, this is the 1-year performance of the chart. I mean, I'm going to have to move around so you can see it. It looks awful. Like, look at this chart. This tells me that there is a lot of hesitation. The stock has been going sideways, which, it's a good sign from the perspective that it's not, investors believe that shares are cheap on a valuation basis, but that's not enough. The market needs to see something more. And of course, you have the cash burn in Foundry. You have the lack of growth in the AI data center segment, particularly with the CPUs lagging behind AMDs. I'm not going to even mention the GPU, which is not even close to AMD's or NVIDIA's AI super chips. So overall, I just don't see enough upside in Intel to change my stance, which initially I have to say that it's neutral, not bearish, but this is not a stock that I would consider to buy now. So let's go into the thesis. We got the post. I don't know. You call it this a truth. I don't know how you call this. I don't know. People call this a truth, but I'm really hesitant on that. Anyways, we got a post, saying that he's highly conflicted and he should resign immediately. It says there is no other solution to this problem. Of course, Trump is using the usual drama, to be on the headlines, in the newspapers, which is fine. I'm not here to judge. We've got the Intel CEO just on that same day, on August 7, sending a letter to the company, to all company employees. Do you see what's interesting about this? It's a letter to employees. I'm just questioning, how many. It's not how many employees care about this. Do you think employees care more about this than the actual investors or shareholders? This should be a letter to the shareholders, but anyways, it's a letter to the employees. Let's say that employees are concerned, and they are the ones who should have an explanation, and possibly not the investors. But yeah. So what we have here is, this is from his own words. He's saying that there was a lot of news, particularly from this post. And, he wanted to take a moment to address directly what was happening. And he's saying that there was a lot of misinformation circulating about his past roles at Walden International and Cadence Design Systems. To give you an idea of that information, so Cadence, he was a previous CEO in the company up until 2021. I believe it was since 2009. When he left the position as a CEO in Cadence back in 21, he joined as a member of the board. I think he was an executive chair for some time. In fact, you can see it here. By the way, the document you're seeing now is the latest Def 14A, also called the proxy statement for Cadence Systems in 2025. So what we have here is 2023. Yeah, this is where he's mentioned. So Lee Bhutan, he retired. He was, 19 years on the board, including 2 years as the executive chairman, which I believe it was since between 2021 and 2023. Now, if we look at the beneficial ownership, let's go back to that part. you can see that there are only 5% owners. Of course, BlackRock and Vanguard Group, the classical suspects. And because he's no longer part of the executive team, he doesn't have to report the shares that he owns in the company. So that's why he's not in the list. So everything that we know so far is that he's not a 5% owner. As to how many shares he has, the only thing you can assume is less than 5%. So that's anywhere between 0 and 5%. Interestingly enough, this happened on July 28th. I will go later by the end of the video. And maybe now. I'm not going to tease too much by the end. Look, on July 28th, there was another development that I think is important for Intel's case. And this is the US Department of Commerce appointed Bill Fraunhofer, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry, as the director of the CHIPS program office. So he has about 39 billion under management. And you will understand in a moment why this is important and why this July 28th, it's not a big coincidence with this date when Cadence was found guilty. And according to the report, this is just a summary. That was 1 quart of conspiracy to commit export control violations over sales to a Chinese military university. So they have to pay about 140 million in the total penalties. And what I found interesting is that the investigation has been going on for over 4 years. So I believe because for the past 4 years, so we're talking about 2021, which is when Lee Butan left Cadence Design Systems as a CEO. He was still part of the board until 2023. I think that's why possibly the new administration, they have raised an eyebrow to the CEO of Intel because of this, this event. Anyways, moving on. We have just a few days. Of course, Lee Butan, I like that. I really like that he addressed the tweet. I don't know how you call these things. The truth. He raised this topic straight away, and he went to the White House to see what's going on and to find a deal. I think Bassett and Ludwig were part of the conversation as well. It was not just Trump and Lee Butan. Oh yeah, there we go. So Howard Rudnick and Scott Bessent. I don't know how to pronounce these names. I'm really sorry, man. I'm from a banana country in Europe, and to me, these surnames, if I were to ask you to pronounce surnames in these banana countries, I can assure you will struggle as well. So the meeting was, so according to him, the meeting was an interesting one. And what I found really interesting is that his success and rise, he's now tagging that as an amazing story, which I find crazy. That just a couple of days ago, he's saying that there is no other solution than for the CEO to resign. So suddenly something changed in his mind. Typical Trump, so this is not big news. But what I found surprising is that after that, so this was on Monday, on August 11th, last Monday, on the week of this press release, of August 11th, we have this piece of news where the administration is said to discuss US taking a stake in Intel. So this is where things get really interesting. And as you probably remember, the administration already has a deal with AMD and NVIDIA for 15% of their sales to China, particularly for the H20 GPUs and MI308 GPUs. This is for NVIDIA. And it's quite interesting because they have, is this an industrial policy? Maybe. What I found surprising is that deal with NVIDIA and AMD it's not new. We already have the United States taking a golden share in US Steel, so they're able to clear the sale to the Japanese rival. I think it was Nippon Steel. We have the Pentagon last month in a move where they took a stake of 400 million in MP Materials. As you know, this is a rare earth elements, REE, producer. However, they rely a lot on China because that's where these materials are processed. In fact, MP Materials, they take the ore and they send it to China for processing, and then it comes back to the US. That's how reliant the US is on China. And well, the idea here is that the US will take a stake possibly similar to the one that has been discussed with MP Materials. It's quite a big one. In fact, the 400 million preferred equity stake in MP Materials, the US is the largest shareholder, to give you an idea. So if the US becomes the largest shareholder for Intel, I think sentiment is going to turn around, and possibly the trend that we're seeing here is going to change from neutral to finally breaking and hopefully recovering to what we have seen, back in 2020, 2021. So I know I'm not a technical analyst. I hate looking at charts, don't get me wrong, but I have to look at them because they tell you what the sentiment is. And right now the sentiment is telling you that you have a lot of hesitation. And I'm not really happy with this. So that's why I'm not considering to buy the dip until I see a clear sign that sentiment is improving. What that sign can be? Well, if I see the share price trading or breaking the 30s, let's call it resistance level, then I may reconsider my rating from a hold to a buy. But so far, Intel is not for me. So coming back to the deal, nothing it's on stone. So according to the report, to the Bloomberg's report, the plans are fluid. The talks could end even without an agreement. And all this investment is to speed up the development of the Ohio site, which is very, very delayed. So earlier this year, we have Intel delays the 100 billion Ohio site to the next decade. And, back in March, this was just a few months later, there was another delay, now to 2031. And then in July, we have yet another delay in the Ohio site, along with planned projects in Germany and Poland to be canceled. So overall, the situation doesn't really look bright for the foundry segment of Intel. In fact, if you look at the Capex, and I got to say, this is one of the main reasons I'm not really keen on this stock. I mean, just look at the cash burn. It's not a cash burn. It's an investment, which is burning cash, because when you look at when you look at free cash flows, they look awful. So in the last 12 months, the company spent 21 billion with a B in Capex, particularly to fund these foundries. And what happens is that free cash flows for the past, almost 3 years, they have been negative. So December 23 down, how much is that? December 23 down 10 billion, December 24 negative 13.2 billion, and in the past 12 months, negative 8.3 billion. It's not the best trend, if you ask me. So that's why I think the US is trying to speed up the development. Maybe the contract is saying that it could involve an equity investment, guaranteed purchases, loans, private financing. So there is quite a few options. Nothing is clear, which maybe there could be an option, for a quick trade, because people say that this is going to be a sell on the news, and I don't think it's a sell on the news, because you don't know what the news are going to be. You don't know how the investment is going to look like. So I wouldn't consider this as a short position for the next few weeks, because if the deal involves the US becoming the largest shareholder in Intel, that's going to rip the share price. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't consider a quick short, similar to what has been going on. You remember in February when Taiwan Semiconductor was considering to take a stake in Intel? I think it was AMD as well. I gotta say that I didn't look into the details. I just remember this particular rumor, which was later on disregarded by the CEO of Taiwan Semiconductors, saying that he wants to only focus on his company. And of course, if you look back in February, just take a quick look at what has been going on in February, So around that rumor, the share price went up by about close to 40%. We're talking about like a 1 week performance. 42%, I think that was the record performance since the dot-com bubble. Then over the next few days, it declined by 30%. So I don't think this is going to be the case now. However, if the deal is soft and if the deal involves a very small stake and a lot of words without a tangible figure that shareholders can look at and say, so Intel's bottom line is going to increase by this much because of this deal with the US. If everything is just words in the air that we're going to support, we're going to buy in the future from them, that's nothing. Like, people want to see actual figures. So the last thing I wanted to discuss, and I know this is probably a long video, so I apologize for that. I will go into the fundamentals in another video. I want to do a series. Is this press release on Friday? So Friday, by the way, if we have a look back at the volume, well, it was the largest traded day. You can see it probably there. Maybe I'm going to have to move my... There we go. So you can see on Friday right there, that was the highest day when the number of shares exchanged hands, in at least 10 years. So I'm thinking 2010 or maybe 2008 was a day that had a similar volume. So that really tells you the importance of the U.S. administration being involved in the deal to take an equity stake to potentially take an equity stake in Intel. And what you have here is that maybe, these are again rumors, the U.S. administration is looking at the CHIPS Act funds to buy the stake in Intel. Now, you have here a summary of that press release. The idea is that the CHIPS funds could at least partially pay for the stake that the government was to have in Intel. It's quite tough because Intel is the largest CHIPS awardee. So that's about 7.7 billion so far. And these include projects like the one in Arizona, New Mexico, Ohio, which we have seen earlier. And this is the one that's been delayed, and it's about 100 million worth of an investment. And then we have Oregon. The next, after Intel, the next awards goes to Taiwan Semiconductors with about 6.6 billion, Micron, Samsung, Texas Instruments, and GlobalFoundries. So the issue here is that about 85% of the CHIPS Act funding was already committed under the binding contracts. So the question is, that 15% left, is that going to be enough for the US government to have a stake? I don't know. It's quite everything is still in the air, I have to say. However, there is something interesting with this guy, which I mentioned earlier, Bill Fraunhofer, that was appointed the director of the CHIPS Program Office in July 28th. And interestingly enough, that was the same day when Cadence was found guilty for the export control violations over sales to a Chinese military university. So overall, the situation is quite interesting. I'm not really happy about negative free cash flows. I have to say, this is the main reason I'm not planning to buy now. I prefer to pay a premium later if the share price, and I agree this is a big if, breaks this, I would say, it's not technically a resistance, it's more like a psychological resistance. So if I see the share price in the 30s, then I will be more confident that the share price it will have momentum to still go up. Because that's what Intel needs right now. It's a change in sentiment to be able to trade back at the levels we have seen in 2020, 2021.